What's up, Epic 7? Tomorrow, Ancient Inheritance starts. For most of the global servers, what unit should you enlist based on the element you've chosen? That's the big question of the hour, right? Depends on your element, what units should you pick? Well, I've made 2 tier lists for you. And they're not really tier lists, they're just groupings, because we can't really tier list this, it would take forever. First, this is going to be our list of units you're going to use for your primary job fight. Now, of course, you don't need all of these, you just need enough to fight at least once, ideally twice. They're somewhat in order. If you are on the light team, which means you're killing Dark Prongo, Landy, Camilla, Savior Adin, and Ambitious Tywin is one of the highest scoring teams out there. You definitely want these 4 units on your team. If you don't have these 4 units, I recommend you don't go on the light team. Pick another team that you're solid for. Second team for the Light Warden would be Conqueror Lilius, Little Queen Charlotte, Infinite Horizon Acades, and Captain Ricorous. And you could sub one of the DPSs out for Commander Pavel should you need, and you could also sub Infinite Horizon Acades out for Ruel. Although Acades is a much better cleanser, Ruel does give you a safety net. These are your 2 boss teams, because you can only fight Prongo twice per day, unless you pick up the relic that lets you hit him more than once. This will give you good coverage, and you should be able to burst significant damage into Prongo with these 2 teams. Likewise for the Dark team, highest scoring team to date has been Mediator Queric, Inos 2.0, Inos 1 works as well if you don't have her specialty change done, Lone Crescent Bologna, and Commander Lorena does need her SC done. This is the highest scoring team for killing the light Prongo with dark units. A second team that does very, very well is Sea Phantom Politis, Remnant Violet, Kitty Clarissa, and Assassin Sid for our defense breaker. We have substituted Assassin Sid out for Sinful Angelica for an additional source of dual attacks, and the scoring's not been that different, but Sid's defense breaks are really nice, and Arby is a nice backup unit for a DPS unit. If you don't have Rylet, you can definitely run Arby. Now for the Earth, Fire, and Ice Warden, remember, Wardens turn passives off, so don't pick units that rely heavily on passives. You'll notice you'll see Arya nowhere on this team because you will never get to use her Murder Penguin. Asaria is really good for resetting and being a defense breaker. Zahak and Charles both are solid DPS bringers. You got a defense breaker here, and Destina is a solid healer. If you have 8 of these units, you will be able to chew through the Water Warden pretty easily. As for fire units, Mascot Hazel is probably the strongest frontline Soul Weaver in this because of all the buffs she gives when you have a mono fire elemental team, but don't count out Tamarin as well for her dual attacks, her cleanses, her pushes, her attack breaks, everything that Tamarin does, of course. Ken for his dual attacks, Cirilla for her non-stop defense breaks, same with Balancezan for his defense breaks and also damage. Haste is loaded with defense breaks and has healing skills on his S2, can inflict vampirism if you run Cirilla or Haste on Bloody Rose. You'll get additional sources of healing for your team. Zealot Carmen Rose, a lot of people forget this. She has built-in lifesteal on her S1, so she can heal herself through her S1 skill. Don't forget the dual attacks and cleansing of Lilius. All the units on this team are fantastic. If you take Ken, make sure you got his number 2 EE so you can do the dual attacks. Oh, and I forgot to mention her. She has not been tested against any of the Warden teams, and we'll have to check out how many of her passives get sealed. But the new Flan ought to be a solid unit as well for damage and defense breaks, especially if you put her on the Bloodstone artifact. She ought to be able to self-heal quite well. As for an ice team, we got Brieg, who, you know what, surprise, surprise, Brieg is the best thing for PvE ever. You'll want Brieg, Ran, Corinne, and Elena. That is a solid way to kill the Earth Warden, just these 4 units. And Lulica, Sigrid, Cerise, and Riza Hawkeye. If you don't have Riza Hawkeye, you can slap Amelia on there. Remember, in the Warden team's healing starts to work less and less as you progress on. And Charlotte, her dual attacks, and she's got built-in defense breaks. Solid unit to have on the team. So these are units that you want to consider having at least one solid grouping of these units to do your job. And remember, your job is killing a Warden or killing a Prongo. So you want to have the tools to get that done. Now, in order to do your job, you need to level your elements. And if you want to level your elements, you want units that can 1 or 2 man clear in the fight. So that brings me to my second list here. These are units for farming the normal mobs. Most, if not all of these units can solo normal monster fights. As long as you don't get in too over your head with attacking something higher level than you should. Remember, rule of thumb with normal mobs is stick to fights that are your level. 1 level lower or 1 level higher, that's fine. 1 level lower, you're kind of wasting XP, wasting units. You're definitely going to 1 man clear it, but you probably could have left 1 level lower for other people who are climbing. 1 level higher, try it. If you fail, slap a Soul Weaver on the team along with it and run it as a 2-man. I'm not really mentioning the Soul Weavers here because, Doris is one of the best Soul Weavers for light. Inos and Haste is one of the best Soul Weavers for dark. Earth, you've got Destina, you've got Green Lots for CR pushing. Fire, you've got Acades, you've got Mascot Hazel, fantastic. And Ice is like a veritable smorgasbord of Soul Weavers, from Elena to Amelia to Angelica to Momo, so you should have no problem with Soul Weavers. If you need to do a 2-man team, if your solo clear fails, slap a Soul Weaver on there. That's why you always want to kind of leave 1 or 2 recruitment spots open, right? Never max out your recruitment slots. Always have 1 or 2 open. That way, if you're doing a fight and you just can't win, you've got room to slot in a Soul Weaver so you can finish the fight. Now, Senya is especially good on the fights where you're going into people where they have extra attacks or counter attacks. Of course, my apologies, I put in Dragon Bright Senya and I meant to put in Landy. Landy, of course, can solo clear just about anything unless you're very, very unlucky with the with her salvos. A Tempest Surin on a lifesteal set, and her damage limit can solo teams. Blaze Dingo has a defense break on his S3. Immortalities, every single attack he does heals. He hits AoE and then hits again. Blaze Dingo's one of the better solo clear units. Savior Adin, you just need to be lucky. Just don't let her get crit. If she gets crit and she dies, well, you lost 1 provision, do the fight again. But usually she solo clears and she self-heals on her S1, even without a lifesteal set. Little Queen Charlotte is just giga tanky, and with her CR pushing, you put her on a healing artifact like Sigurd's Scythe, she solo clears. Sylvan Sage Vivian can solo clear. You've just got to make sure you sandbag her S3 for when things get a little rough, and then you soulburn her S1 for AoE hits. She hits so damn hard, especially on a lifesteal set. You should have no problem clearing. And Mirsa on a lifesteal set. Remember to save your souls so that you can soulburn her S3. It'll be a full heal, and she'll nuke just about anything with a soulburned S3. Combine any of them with a defense breaker or any of them with a Soul Weaver, and you'll be able to clear things that are 1 or 2 levels higher than you as well. Dark Apoc Ravi is a solo clear. Lone Crescent Bologna either on lifesteal or on Sigurds, or a combination of both, usually solo clears. Martial Artist Ken, though he does rely on being crit, and although the enemy only crits about 50% of the time, he usually gets crit enough that he does solo clear. Remember, you can soulburn his S1 to get a crit out of him. Mediator Queric on... Slap Mediator Queric on Sigurd's Scythe and solo clear with this guy. Not kidding, he's a warrior. He hits freakishly hard the way Ancient Inheritance ramps up the stats with his S2 giving you a barrier and his S3 giving you an attack buff. He is a total package solo clear unit, not kidding. Shu, same, self-healing artifact, solo clear. Abyssal Euphine, she self-heals when she attacks on lifesteal set, and with her going into trauma mode so easily, being hit so many times, you should have no problem clearing. Dark Corvus is one people overlook. It's not the fastest fight in the world, but Dark Corvus can solo clear just about any fight because he gets hit so many times that by the time it's his turn, he drops his S3 and he kills 1 unit and self-heals all the way back up. And of course, Remnant Violet is basically the same unit as Savior Adin, just don't get hit. It's easier since his buff, and he'll be able to solo clear. Violet is the Earth version of the Violet, and he self-heals constantly. Between Appling and Lifesteal, you will be able to solo clear with this guy really easily. Charles is able to solo a lot of teams as long as you proc counter and his extra attacks he does good. Albedo surprisingly can solo teams, she's just that tanky. You should be able to chew through the enemy before they kill you if you have the 3F artifact. Alencia on her number 1 EE, especially that, and a healing artifact like Sigurd's Scythe or Golden Rose, and she'll be able to self-heal and solo clear. Bellona on a tankier build on Lifesteal and or Bloodstone will be able to solo clear. Landy on Bloodstone 100% can solo fights, and the Immortal Wukong on a healing artifact, and especially if you put them on Lifesteal, easy, easy, easy. Green is probably one of the easiest colors to build a solo team, or build solo fight units and climb fast. Fire gets a little bit more difficult, but we still have some good solo units like Edward Elric. Ken doesn't self-heal, but you can put him on Sigurd's Scythe, and since he's an HP scaler, or Golden Rose, and since he's an HP scaler, he self-heals pretty well on those artifacts and can take a hit, and he has loaded with defense breaks, makes clearing faster. Milam is a mage, so she can hit like a truck, and remember her S1 is a self-healing skill, so just make sure you use her S1s and you should have no problem keeping her alive. Likewise, Zealot Carmen Rose's S1 is a self-healing skill. Ravi heals with all of her skills. Charlotte, you can put her on Lifesteal, and Charlotte has the added boon early on of being a 100% crit unit. You don't have to worry about being understated on her early on. She will just always crit. And Janua, most won't want to do it, but if you put Janua on a Lifesteal set, I'm pretty sure he can solo mobs. He's kind of a little bit of an outlier, but he can do it. Brieg is a very easy to solo with unit if you put him on a Lifesteal set, especially if you don't want to put him on a Lifesteal set. His barriers alone should be able to get the job done. Shu is able to Lifesteal on Sigurd's Scythe or Golden Rose. You can put her on a Lifesteal set, but she does have self-healing in her S2. She should be able to, as long as you are not terribly unlucky on her Foosh skill. Luna, because the game ramps up her damage so fast, and ramps up her stats so fast, and she gets so many bonus stats, you will be able to solo with her because she will be tanky as hell and hit like a truck, letting Sigurd's Scythe heal her all the way to the top. A little harder to solo with early on, but she can do it. Rem, a little bit tougher, but as soon as something dies, she will clear the entire enemy team, and the fights usually go long enough that she will be able to get demon mode again by round number 2. A little bit dodgy, but she can work. Yuna doesn't do a ton of damage, but on Bloodstone, because everything she does is AoE, you should be able to keep her alive for soloing. Same with Seaside Bellona, especially on a Lifesteal build. Lifesteal plus Bloodstone definitely can solo clear. And Arya. Arya is a little trickier at early levels if you're fighting a monster that strips. You want to make sure Arya doesn't have her counterattack buff stripped. Now, by the time you get to level 4 or 5, she's like a guaranteed solo clear because she'll have enough ER to not be stripped. But early on, you may want to make sure you stack ER on her, right? Maybe go triple resist set or put Bastion on her, something to make sure she has enough ER to not be stripped, and she should be able to solo mobs. Now, this is by far and away not the only units that you could use for solo clearing. If you've got some other ideas, drop them in the comment section, let people know, but this is a good solid list. And remember, any dual attack unit, any defense break unit, any soul weaver, any knight, any second unit you put on the team will solve the problem if your solo clear is failing. Just combine it with one other unit and get it done. That's why you always want to leave a little space open in your recruitment roster in case you use all your units, you've got one left, and you just can't solo clear that last fight. You can recruit that last person in and finish that fight for the day. Hopefully these lists help you out. I hope this answers some questions about who to pick and what to use. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow morning when we live stream Ancient Inheritance, day number 1. Take care, Epic 7.